The Kings close out their road trip by crapping out in Las Vegas. That and more on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. We'd love you to leave us some positive comments wherever it is you find your podcasts. And we're also on YouTube. Please like and subscribe if you're enjoying this content. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years, 20 plus years at the Fox Sports Radio Network. I'm also co-host of the Puck Podcast, a weekly NHL review show that's been putting out content for the past 18 years, and a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Well, the Kings finally played their final game of this season opening 7-game road trip, the final game in Las Vegas against the Pacific Division rival Golden Knights. As for the starting lineup for the Kings, it would be the exact same lineup we saw in the previous game against the Anaheim Ducks. Andrei Kopitar centering the top line with Adrian Kempe and Quentin Byfield. Philip Deneau centering the second line with Trevor Moore and Kevin Fiala. Alex Turcotte centering the third line with Alex Laferriere and Warren Foegele. And Trevor Lewis centering the fourth line with Tanner Jeannot and Andre Lee. The defensive pairings were Mikey Anderson and Vladislav Gavrikov, Joel Edmondson and Brant Clark, Andreas Englund, and Jordan Spence. And the goaltender was David Riddick, with Phoenix Copley serving as the backup. So the big question for me going into this game was, could the Kings carry over the momentum they had from back-to-back wins as they took on a Golden Knights team that was 3-0 at home so far this season? Well, the answer was no. But the game was actually very even through the first 10 minutes of the opening period, but things changed when the Golden Knights were able to use their effective power play. They had a power play opportunity and scored easily to make it 1-0. Second power play opportunity, again, an easy goal for the Golden Knights to make it 2-0. And then less than a minute 30 later, at even strength, a fortuitous bounce for the Golden Knights gets them a 3-0 lead after one period. Kings didn't feel like they were a 3-0 team at that point by the way they played, especially 5-on-5. But scoreboard don't lie, as they say. Second period, the Kings had several power play opportunities to get back in the game. They didn't convert on those opportunities, but we'll talk about that more coming forward. But they were able to get on the board late in the second period, Warren Foegele scoring his first of the year at even strength. And it was 3-1 going into the third, and certainly if the Kings could get the next goal, they're right back in the game. We've talked about how the third period was their best period so far this season. Unfortunately, that just did not happen. The Golden Knights would score 3 times in the third period, none of them into an empty net, by the way, and they would skate off with a convincing 6-1 win over the LA Kings. As far as the final stats in this one, 6-1 Vegas with the win. Shots on goal actually favored the Kings, 33-30. Power play opportunities, the Kings were 0 for 4, and Vegas was 2 for 2, and that was really the biggest stat of the game. Faceoffs did favor Vegas 32-18. Block shots favored the Golden Knights 21-12, and hits favored the LA Kings 35-21. Now, as far as the big takeaway for me from this game, I'll start off by saying, and I'll say it for the final time, starting off this 7-game road trip, I said if the Kings could get 8 points, that I would consider that a good start to the season. Well, they did get those 8 points on the 7-game road trip. Certainly would have liked to have seen it be more with a better performance in Las Vegas. But again, I am going to say when you look at the totality of that 7-game road trip, I'm pretty good with 8 points in those 7 games. However, I will have to say the way they ended the road trip certainly leaves a bit of a bad taste in your mouth. Although, if I'm honest, I didn't really feel like that game was a 6-1 result. I mean, that's what the scoreboard says, and that's all that matters, I suppose. But the Kings weren't that bad. Now, were they good enough to win? No. not at all. And I'm not trying to spin this as somehow the Kings were the better team and just didn't get the right bounces. I would not go that far at all. I think the Golden Knights were the better team. They deserved to win. But this was also not the Kings' worst game of the season. They were worse in Ottawa. They were worse in Toronto. I'd even say they were worse in Buffalo despite getting the 2 points. Now, this game against the Golden Knights, just based on the way the game was played, especially 5-on-5, it kind of felt like, I don't know, 4-2. Vegas probably should have won. And you could certainly say, who cares? A loss is a loss. And, true, if you gave me my choice, what would I rather have? The Kings playing like crap for 2 periods and then, the goalie standing on his head and they pull out a win like they did in Buffalo, or a game like this where they played a much better overall game, but the result was lopsided. Obviously, I'm going to take the points. But, that's kind of the small picture. Big picture is, if the Kings play a lot of games like they did in Buffalo, they're not going to win many of them. I kind of feel like if they play a lot of games like they did in Vegas, there's going to be better results. I don't think I'm trying to put a better spin on this. I'm just telling you what I watched. I didn't think the Kings were a 6-1 loss by the way they played on the ice. That having been said, obviously there were issues, and we'll get into those in a second. But I did want to, give a quote from head coach Jim Hiller, and it seems like the head coach kind of felt the way I did as well. Hiller said after the game, quote, "We started the game all right, and we broke down a couple of times on the penalty kill. I think that really took some momentum away. The puck found a way to land on their sticks a few times. We were not strong enough in front of the net. I don't know that there was a lot of breakdowns outside of we let a guy go to the net and he tapped one in from 6 inches. Funny game. We got our chances. It wasn't a 6-1 game, but that's what the scoreboard reads, and we'll have to accept it." End quote. And I think, a lot of times coaches obviously want to put a certain spin on things, but I think Jim Hiller saw what I saw. And again, you could say, who cares? The loss is a loss. But again, to me, you see 6-1, you think that's pretty much a butt kicking. And it didn't really feel that way. But again, there were definitely some things that were bad for the LA Kings. And I saw what Jim Hiller saw. We'll get to that in a moment as far as being around the net. But 2 things to me clearly that were bad for the LA Kings in this loss: special teams front and center. The other was toughness and execution around the net, both in front of their own and in front of the Golden Knights net as well. But we'll start with the Kings power play as it continues to struggle. But the penalty kill was just awful, especially in that first period. The Kings allowed 2 power play goals, and the Golden Knights, who do have a very good power play, did make it look easy, way too easy. Easy setups, easy entries into the zone, and easy goals. 5-on-5, the Kings were not that bad. Shorthanded, awful. I have said it. I like this more aggressive penalty kill style. And of course, looking big picture on it, the reason the Kings did this was because of the results they had trying to kill off that Edmonton Oilers power play. Didn't work. And that's a big reason why they were out in the playoffs pretty quickly. So they had to change. So far, there are some issues, though, with it. And those things have to be corrected. You cannot allow, and I know the Golden Knights have a good power play, but you cannot allow it to be that easy. They didn't really have to the Golden Knights didn't have to work at all to get those power play goals. As for the Kings power play, just not a lot of attention to detail, little things turning into big things, sloppiness, trying to hold the puck in at the blue line. And then you have to reset the entire thing, and there's no flow to the power play. Bottom line, the Kings were down 3-0. And they basically, in the second period, had 6 consecutive minutes of power play time. There was a holding penalty against Mikey Anderson, and right after that expired, or right before it was going to expire, Quentin Byfield took a high stick, drew blood. Kings got a double minor, 4 minutes of power play time, didn't score a goal in basically 6 straight minutes of having an extra player on the ice. And that just can't happen. The Kings power play has struggled, but again, you can't have 6 minutes basically of power play time and not get 1 goal. That's just not acceptable. And again, the Kings special teams just not getting it done, to say the least. I have mentioned that the Kings right now are top 5 in penalties taken, But honestly, the two penalties they took in this game, Joel Edmondson called for a slash and Andre Lee called for a hold. Neither of them I would categorize as vicious or dumb penalties, just things that kind of happen during a game. I could even say they were kind of marginal penalties, but um, it wasn't like undisciplined bad penalties, so to speak. So I can't really criticize the penalties that the Kings took. Sometimes things happen in the course of trying to defend. But again, that said, the Kings special teams have to be better, period. Also, the Kings have to be much better in front of their net and in front of the opponent's net. Vegas was way more puck hungry than the Kings were. In the offense, the Kings talked about being, or in the offseason, the Kings talked about being uncomfortable, right? Being more blue collar, going to the net. And that just wasn't the case at all in this game, especially protecting their own net. The first, third, and fifth goals the Golden Knights scored was because they were more aggressive in front of the Kings net and they were attacking rebounds. There's got to be more desire for the Kings to get to and defend that blue ice. And the Kings just have to be better, again, on special teams and better in front of their own net. We'll get a little bit into what was actually good for LA after this game against the Vegas Golden Knights. We'll do that next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Did want to mention that we are so lucky to live in Southern California, have so many live events to go to. The Kings will obviously be home on Thursday, and you can get a ticket for less than $50, even less than that if you use your Game Time discount. Lakers tipped off their season last night at home, so they're going on as well. But it's not just about sports. We've got so many different options, theaters, comedy shows, concerts. But no matter what you enjoy, you need to do what I do, and that is use Gametime for all your ticket needs. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks. It makes getting tickets to your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats. You don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Game time. And PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. It is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. All you have to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Think Anze Kopitar will have more or less than 66.5 points this season. How about Adrian Kempe? More or less 31.5 goals. Just go to PrizePicks app, make your right picks, and you could be a winner. And you can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. PrizePicks is the best way to get in on the sports action in most states, including California. Download the PrizePick app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNHL and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's the code LOCKEDONNHL on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly. When you play $5, you don't even have to win to receive that $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. All right, so continuing with the LA Kings, we talked about the loss to the Vegas Golden Knights and a lot of things that need to be corrected for the Kings. Mostly, again, the power play and protecting their own net and being tougher in front of the other team's net. What was good for the Kings? Again, 5-on-5, they were not that bad. But what was really good was the Turcotte line. Alex Turcotte, Alex Laferriere, and Warren Foegele again. This line is doing very well. Foegele had the lone goal for the Kings, his first as a King. Alex Laferriere, I thought, was probably the best player on the ice for the Kings, and Alex Turcotte was certainly solid as well. All you need to know about how head coach Jim Hiller felt about that line was down 3-1 to start the third period, looking to get back in the game. Hiller started the Turcotte line at the start of the period, and in the third period, when Hiller started to shuffle the lines, the one line he didn't touch was the Turcotte line. So I also wanted to say, you know what, the Kings did not pack it in this game when they were down in the third period, 4-1, 5-1, 6-1, final game of the 7-game road trip. I know you can argue that's not setting the bar very high that, hey, the Kings didn't quit, but I've seen it before with teams in the final game of a road trip wanting to just wrap it up and get back home. The Kings didn't do that. They competed for 60 minutes in this game. It didn't translate on the scoreboard, unfortunately, but I thought for the most part, the Kings did play the right way. And that is something positive to take away from this game. As far as we had our keys to victory for the LA Kings on our preview show, and obviously that didn't go well for the LA Kings. The number one key to victory was start fast and get the first goal. That obviously did not happen. The Kings were down 3-0 out of the first period. The second key was keep it close going into the third. The Kings sort of did this. It was a 2-goal game, 3-1 going to the third, but I was more thinking the game needed to be tied or the Kings maybe down 1 goal, but down 2 goals, not a great situation. So they didn't really keep it close going into the third and be even in the special teams battle. That definitely did not happen. The special teams were won in large part by the Vegas Golden Knights. I did want to call out one player in particular for the LA Kings, and that is Kevin Fiala. He was not good in this game. He was way too casual. Passes that didn't connect, losing the puck and having it come out of the zone, missing the net on shots. I have a high standard for Kevin Fiala. I think when he's on his game, he's an elite player, but this was not one of the games where he was on his game, and he just has to be much better, period. He needs to be a positive player for the Kings, and in this game, he was a negative player, literally was a negative player. He was a -2 in this game, and so far for Fiala, he's been a bit off on the season so far, but it's time. It's 7 games into the season. It's time for him to get going. He kind of looks like he's still playing preseason games out there. At least he did, I thought, against Vegas. Just was not sharp in that game at all. And he's one of the top players for the Kings. They rely on him to create offense, to be a spark, and he just wasn't at all, in my opinion, in that game against Vegas. So the Danault line with Fiala and Trevor Moore as a whole wasn't very good. I've obviously talked about Fiala, but I thought Danault and Moore were out-muscled a couple of times on plays that resulted in goals. Very out of character for those two guys in particular. Moore finished a -2 and Danault was a -1. I did want to mention Quentin Byfield. We talked about him looking to kind of needing a goal at some point here just to kind of get his confidence going. That didn't happen, unfortunately, in this game. He did have a great chance in a key moment and unfortunately did not put it in the net. The Kings were down 3-1, started the second period. He made a nice move around a defender on a great feed from Anze Kopitar, and then he missed the net. And that could have not only been a huge moment in the game, but a big moment early in the season for Quentin Byfield. If he wants to be considered an elite player at some point, those kind of opportunities have to be scored on. Brandt Clark had a tough night. He was a -3, had the puck go off his skate and into the back of the net, which is always a tough thing, just bad luck on his part. Also had a couple of issues on the power plays, holding the puck into the zone at the blue line when he wasn't being pressured. Just, again, attention to detail, being a little bit sloppy for Brandt Clark. You can say it comes with the territory of being a young player. Kevin Fiala, though, not a young player, and he had a kind of a similar game as well. One player I am not going to call out is the goaltender. And I know when you see 6 goals allowed, you're going to say, well, David Rittich had a bad game. Well, let's quickly examine the goals that he allowed. First goal, Tomas Hertl is allowed to just sit in the crease and whack away at the puck on the power play. That's on his teammates not doing a better job of clearing out the front of the net. Second goal was a double deflection. First, it was Hertl and then Mark Stone. No goalie in the NHL is going to make that save. The third goal, Kevin Fiala collided with the referee and lost his stick. As a result, he wasn't able to cover the point on a shot. Now, Rittich did make the save, but the Golden Knights had a couple of players that were putting, on the puck for putback attempts, and eventually it would go off the post, off of Brandt Clark's skate, and in. Obviously, that's not on David Rittich. Philip Danault, by the way, was just watching Pavel Dorofurov just go right to the net on that play. The fourth goal, Andreas Englund doesn't clear the zone. Andre Lee was with a forward on the ice. He thought the puck was going to be cleared, so he had turned and was heading out of the zone, and that left the defenseman able to get a shot on net from a high danger area. The fifth goal, a point shot goes off of a body in front right to the stick of Tomas Hertl. He puts it into the net. And then the sixth goal, Ivan Barbashev scores in the high slot, another high danger area for a Golden Knights player to score on. So honestly, 6 goals allowed by David Riddick. I know that that's ugly, but none of those were soft goals. A lot of bad coverage by his teammates, some bad luck as well. But I don't put this loss on David Riddick. It was not about the goaltending for the LA Kings. So the Kings will finally get to play some home games. Will we see some lineup changes? That's next here on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And of course, FanDuel is there for you to bet on Major League Baseball. The postseason, obviously, we're reaching the World Series. The Dodgers taking on the Yankees. Dodgers are getting a run and a half in Game 1 on Friday, so LA underdogs in that one. The over-under is 8.5. Dodgers are a -122 to win it all. Hopefully they can win one for Fernando. Join FanDuel, browse the latest betting odds on your favorite sports and teams in the Sportsbook app, and get in on the action. You get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. All right, the Kings are back in action Thursday in the home opener. Yes, they're going to play a home game finally against the San Jose Sharks, who are still looking for their first win of the season. So, good opportunity for the Kings to get a win on home ice to open up the home schedule. We will see if Darcy Kemper might be back in net or not. I think that question will be answered later today. If he practices on Wednesday, then there is a good shot Darcy Kemper could be back in net. If he doesn't practice, then obviously it's going to be either David Riddick or Phoenix Copley. I would assume David Riddick, but we shall see. Late in the game against the Golden Knights, Jim Hiller, as I mentioned, did shuffle the lines, tried to get things going. He had Quentin Byfield moving back to center, and he was centering Kevin Fiala and Trevor Moore. Andre Lee was moved up to the top line on the wing with Andre Kopitar and Adrian Kempe. And then you had Philip Deneau with Tanner Jeannot and Trevor Lewis. I think that the shuffling of the lines in the game against Vegas in the third period, I think that was just to try and change things up and get the Kings going. I don't think we're going to see a lot of changes again in the lines for the home opener against San Jose. I think we're going to see pretty much the same lineup we have seen for the game against Montreal and the game against Anaheim, the 2 wins. So I think that's what we're going to see from Jim Hiller, but obviously we won't know until game time. And the Kings, again, finally getting to play at home. We will see on Thursday the newly renovated Crypto.com arena. I'm going to be out there. And if you can't make it out, I'll definitely take some pictures, post some videos to see exactly what the Kings' new home looks like for the upcoming season. And then, of course, the Kings are taking on San Jose on Thursday. They'll come back for a rematch at home against. Actually, let me correct myself. San Jose on Thursday at home, and then Saturday a home game for the Kings against the Utah Hockey Club. That's a 1 p.m. afternoon start. Then they're on the road on Tuesday against the Sharks, and then back home for a rematch against the Golden Knights on Wednesday. And that's when they will be closing out the month of October. They will start November with one more home game, another afternoon game on a Saturday against the Blackhawks, and then it's back on the road again. So the Kings home for 4 of the next 5 games, hoping to use that home ice advantage to get some points. All right, for you everydayers, those of you that listen and watch Locked On LA Kings every day, coming up on Thursday's show, the voice of the LA Kings, Nick Nixon, is scheduled to join us to talk about his career, the final year of him as the voice of the LA Kings, and also, of course, talk about the Kings season so far. Friday, we will recap the Kings home opener and have our weekly fan feedback show. If you want to get an email in for the fan feedback show, again, get that email in as early as possible. I will be recording the Friday feedback show early Friday morning. And also, if you're going to be out there for the Kings home opener on Thursday and you want to meet up and say hi, I'm more than willing to do that. You can send me an email or reach out on social media and we can get together at the home opener on Thursday. The email address, as always, lockedoneddie@gmail.com, EDDIE. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can always post your comments in the comments section. We'd love for you to stay interactive with the show on social media, X, Twitter, and Instagram. We are at Locked On LA Kings. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thanks for listening and watching this episode of Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you tomorrow. And as always, go Kings go.